Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today, we're going to take a look at what would a Gary Gensler's SEC win look like for crypto and XRP. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today we start a little different. I have a lot of information I want to go over with you, and I want to start very quickly by saying, if you're not sure what to do about your crypto taxes, reach out to Clinton Donnelly, the crypto tax fixer at DonnellyTaxLaw.com. He is the foremost authority on crypto taxes. Don't mess around. But today we start with Geeta Gopinath from the IMF here, and she says they're finally seeing the light, is what Go Squad Pack says here. Sanctions on Russia could eat away at the dollar's global dominance and boost the use of crypto, the IMF says. Very quickly, let's look at this. Sanctions on Russia could end up eroding the dominance of the U.S. dollar, a top IMF official told Financial Times here. It says here, some countries are already renegotiating the currency they are paid for in international trade, says Geeta Gopinath. It also could spur the adoption of cryptocurrencies, but there's still a gap in regulation, she says. And that's where we come to today. I remind people, this is a Linda P. Jones tweet. Shout out to you, Linda. And it says, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa have an alliance known as BRICS. They will buy Russian gas with rubles or gold. The U.S., Canada, and Europe are withholding payment. Contracts to be halted by Russia. Russia is demanding rubles or gold here, making a real stand for a fractional zone of payments to be developed out of this war and conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and obviously the secondary effects of the sanctions from SWIFT. This leads us to this conversation a couple days ago announced was this e-cash bill by government here. And this e-cash bill talks about the e-cash not being on a distributed ledger technology, but on devices. And it could be lost just like physical cash could, because it would be considered money that is digital, but a bearer instrument. And in just a moment, I'm going to show you that Gary Gensler also sees crypto assets broadly as bearer instruments. Now, with that being said, I think the reason I'm doing this today is because of this bill. Because Congress, when they propose bills, they know things that we do not. They are privy to hearings and committees and all of this, right? So at the end of the day, when I see Congressman Stephen Lynch and others putting together a bill here about e-cash that could be looked at and treated like a bearer instrument, really tells me that they have insight on something. They basically are trying to get attention and sponsorship for a bill based on, I believe, the information they are gathering from the SEC in hearings and other agencies as well. My speculation, but that's what I believe. Now, understanding too that all of this current global economic events and war and conflict, and let us not forget, we have been in a monetary war for a very long time. So understanding that, gold is now projected here to reach over $3,000 in the near term, let's say. So this is getting very interesting because I believe we are in fact moving to a new world order, whether we like it or not. And I also believe that not only are we moving to that new world order, but when we get there, it is going to be a multipolar asset-backed system. We are currently in a debt-based system, and we must change in order to have a chance to have any kind of what they say as a global reset or the Great Reset, and not in the World Economic Forum sense either, because I'm not into that. But let's hear this clip very quickly. It's a different clip from this morning from the World Government Summit of this year. Take a listen.
Are we ready for a new world order?
It's about what underpins a world order is always the financial system.
And you know what underpins every financial system? A bond market.
I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in '71, and so I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new one, the new accounting, is what we call blockchain.
And there you have it, right? So this is what is going on the World Government Summit this year. Now, again, talking about the eCash and talking about the bearer instrument, eCash would be a bearer instrument, says it right here, replicates the same functionalities of physical dollars to the largest extent possible. So with that being said, this brings us to a bearer instrument is a bond. It could be looked at as a bond or a promissory note or a note like currency, right? That is a bearer instrument, just like they said, just like physical currency. But here's a fun fact really quickly. The Bank of England, the world's oldest central bank still in existence, was established to raise money to rebuild the British Navy in the 17th century through the issuance of bonds. Well, isn't it true that we are in a situation where we're in a monetary war, not a physical war, although we see physical war between Russia and Ukraine? Knock on wood that doesn't get any worse for all of us, right? And hopefully peace to everyone soon. But the truth is that looking at this, we could make the argument that we have been in a monetary war for decades with China and other countries here in the United States. And we could be looking at the $10 trillion plus that has been printed because of the liquidity crisis and the pandemic as a moment in time where we need to rebuild, but not because of a physical war, but because of a liquidity crisis and a monetary war. I think this is worth noting here. So now I take you to previous things that I've done here that I want to bring you in on, and let me start right here. Let's roll the tape. This goes back to 2021 here, but it really brings us through everything we just went through in the last 72 hours of information to what we've known up until now. Take a listen. It always has gotten me since Brad Garlinghouse congratulated Gary Gensler and said he's ready to work with the SEC leadership to broaden the Biden administration to chart a path forward for blockchain and crypto innovation in the U.S. Well, that's exciting, but we know that Gary Gensler sees XRP as an unregistered security. Let's hear here.
So Hugo was asked about the token XRP and whether I think it's a non-compliant security. I've spoken publicly. Yes, I do think it's a non-compliant security.
And that's all you need to hear there. And that is who is coming in to head up the SEC. Now, listen again. Now, I've played these clips for you, but stay with me. We're going to another place today. Okay, because it's a further defining place if this outcome should come to light. So let's stay with this. Listen to Dilip Rao at his time at Ripple here.
Does this hurt or harm? Well, it creates a lot of noise. And, we certainly don't want that much noise. Say is very shallow trading by individuals.
He's talking about retail trading.
So, it's kind of chicken and egg. You have to create a marketplace. And right now, we have about 150, 200 exchanges around the world that trade in XRP. A lot of it, as you say, is very shallow trading by individuals, and that is not the use case that we are pursuing. What we are pursuing is the use of XRP as a financial asset by sophisticated institutions as a bridging mechanism. So does this hurt or harm? Well, it creates a lot of noise, and we certainly don't want that much noise, but we're waiting. And for example, this last quarter, the bulk of XRP sales were to institutional investors. And as this transitions away from retail to institutions who start to use it for wholesale, financial usage, that's when the turning point will come.
And I believe that turning point is now. And I also believe firmly that that's what this lawsuit is really about. It is about the turning point to move now away from the noise of the retail investors. And boy, is he right about that. You only need to surf crypto Twitter to find a noise for a lifetime. And the reality is that they're pivoting away from that, is what it feels like to me. And getting this decision is going to be a part of that. Now, we know that Brad Garlinghouse has said openly he sees XRP as a currency. Well, so do I. And you know what? And that and 50 cents won't get you a cup of coffee. But the reality is maybe it's just about that positioning and that pivoting. And this is how you begin to shut the door on the noisy retail investor who doesn't bring as much money as they do noise, right? And, you know, then I look at this and get reaffirmed that Brad Garlinghouse has been very open about this fact.
We are not, and to be very clear, we are not focused. I've said this a bunch. The consumer speculator is not our target market.
That's all you need to know. The consumer speculator, you and I, are not their target market. That does not make Brad Garlinghouse a bad guy. It does not make Ripple a bad company. It does not make XRP, in my eyes, a bad thing to hold. You know, but that's not financial advice. It's just my perspective. And the reality here is when I hear him say that, I hear him acknowledging that the ultimate intended use is not the consumer speculator. And it makes sense to me. Look, we only bring enough liquidity to the game to keep it around 20 or 30 cents or so. Which, by the way, was a year ago on price, and we're currently at 80 some cents now. So you have to wonder, knowing that U.S. retail holders have been sidelined from getting XRP in the way they used to, you have to wonder, is the 80 cents coming from on-demand liquidity or the secondary market buying from retail? So, with that being said, let's keep moving. So what is XRP if Gary Gensler comes in and says it's clearly a security to him? Well, you know, Ripple already has private equity that they sell. They sell stock shares, private equity stock shares to different people and companies that want to buy into the company of Ripple. If XRP were to be a security, maybe it gets a designation that looks a lot more like a bearer bond used to be. Back in the day, I remember my grandmother had some, and shout out to Big Skinny, because him and I had an amazing conversation about this, and him and I have gone back and forth. I mean, you couldn't even imagine. But we've spent a lot of time talking about this, and for this security outcome, maybe if we get a designation that goes that way, maybe this could be one of the ways that they take it. And I don't think it would harm the intended use and the full-scale use of XRP in the long run if they did so. So let's run through that. And very quickly, I still believe firmly that XRP is a virtual currency, but we're just analyzing what would be the outcome and what are they trying to do with the SEC. And what I believe they're trying to do is to bring XRP and other cryptos underneath their jurisdictional power grab, right? And their supervision. And the only way I believe that they can legitimately try to do that is to go this avenue to do it. If they were to give a bearer bond definition, a bearer bond is a fixed income security that is owned by the holder. Now, the difference between a registered bond that you could get today in any market versus a bearer bond is simply that the ownership is not really on it. Whoever holds, literally physically holds the bearer bond, owns the bearer bond. There's no name and account information or anything attached to a bearer bond. In fact, broadly here in the United States, they were discontinued in 1982 because it was a big way that people were using to hold bearer bonds to avoid paying taxes, as you can imagine. So obviously, that wouldn't be an issue these days because everything is really tracked on a digital ledger, now isn't it? Now let's keep going with the idea about this bearer bond being a fixed income security. I don't know, maybe that even talks about a price set, and they could look at it as a bond in that regard, because if you're synchronizing and collateralizing this ledger with utility and volume, you could provide a floor price for this potential bearer bond, XRP. And by the way, remember, David Schwartz reminded us before we went to Singapore in 2019 that you could issue stablecoins off of the XRP ledger, which means you could issue a stablecoin for the XRP that you hold. And let us not forget also that the World Bank in November of 2021, just 5 months from this day we're talking about, 5 months earlier, said they see Ripple XRP and Stellar XLM as stable coins, which highly suggests that they could be price set at some point. These are very interesting avenues that this could all play out, and I find it striking that we can't take any of these off the table as of yet. Come on in. Another interesting point is knowing that we've been able to see inside of the SEC Ripple lawsuit. What else do we know? We also know that the tolling agreement started in April of 2019, and then just shortly after, in November, David Schwartz comes out with the information letting all of us know that you can issue stable coins off of the XRP ledger and XRP itself, right? So maybe they knew from the tolling agreements and the negotiations between the SEC, even back then, that we need to develop the network and let everyone that uses the network or intends to know that this is something that they can go and the route that we can go should we need to if these negotiations don't pan out. Or maybe it was the plan all along. It doesn't matter. But it fits, and it fits until it doesn't, right? Now, moving on here, a bearer bond, just a full definition, is a bond or a debt security. A debt security issued by a business entity, such as a corporation or a government. Well, you know, banks also do this too. They did it back in the day. Banks typically issue bearer bonds, sometimes called coupon bonds, to hold in exchange for an investment. Really? Like we're all holding this bond right now, knowing that it could be worth a lot more when the volume and utility of these massive financial institutions around the world begin to synchronize on the network and use that payment rail for settlement? You're damn right. And then looking here before we go, this is the IMF document we went over about the treatment of crypto assets in a macroeconomic statistics. Looking on page 27, lo and behold, they break down the classifications at the International Monetary Fund on how they see crypto assets. And as they break down the pyramid here, look at this. We get to debt securities, and you could have a utility token that's a trade security and debt security. Hybrid token, which obviously could work as a utility or asset or debt security or equity security. I'm not saying that it is this, but I'm saying we have proven a path that if they get a security designation, you could see this, because the IMF has a schematic here and a diagram that certainly lays out the potential for such a thing to happen. And I think if they did issue it as a bearer bond, it'd be a way of saying you don't own a part of Ripple, because that's what the private equity from Ripple is for. That is the stock to Ripple if you own that. XRP, however, is a bearer bond to the ledger, because the ledger has value, and the value is in the protocol. Who taught us that? Oh, that's right, this guy, Glenn Hutchins. Let's listen to him say it again.
You just make use of the technology and the protocols make it work. The people who really understand what's going on with digital currencies understand that putting these protocols in place, the blockchain protocol, the Ethereum protocol, the Ripple protocol, and then enabling those protocols to cause transactions to occur. And then those transactions can be defined very broadly as not just moving things of value, but anything that's got an information content, is extraordinarily transformative. The focus on the value of the token is distracting and uninformative.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And look, this all brings us to a place where, again, the verbiage being used in Congress by the recent bill introduced, calling the eCash experiment for digital dollars bearer instruments. And also this, very quickly before we get out of here, right out of Gary Gensler's mouth. Check this out.
Now, some people will call it currency, but none of these projects have really taken on a full general embodiment of a medium of exchange, unit of account, and store of value.
Before he goes on any further, I want to bring up the point, what have you been seeing Ripple do? Ripple launched a lending program several months ago. And when they did, if you look at the qualifications of a Reeves test for it to be a non-security designation, if you are lending to your customers, that is one of the exceptions to make it a non-security. When you look at the medium of exchange, store of value, and those things that he highlighted out that really reference a currency, right? You have to look at the understanding of what they have done of the most recent with Ripple. The announcement of the Central Bank of Bhutan and the fact that they will be launching off of their ledger a CBDC for which XRP can be used as a bridge currency, creating the definition of a unit of account, store of value, medium of exchange, which is the definitions and 3 tenets of a currency. And also the Republic of Palau, right? The more we see these things roll out around the rest of the world, it really becomes the defense for Ripple and XRP to be looked at and treated as a bridge currency. Keep listening. And by the way, I consider the SEC case the actual Reeves test. As far as I'm concerned, the SEC lawsuit, is in fact, I believe, the best example of what the Reeves test is. Because you first must start with whatever you're looking at and analyzing under the presumption that it is in fact a security. And that's exactly what the SEC is doing in this lawsuit. Continue to listen.
You know, Bitcoin's being used for ransomware around the globe. There's like incentives here to use a bearer form of value transfer.
There it is.
That's what a lot of this is. It's a bearer form of value transfer. We already have digital money.
Yeah.
We have digital money.
Yeah.
We use it every day of the week. We use digital money. So what do you mean when you say you view...
let me try and make this easy. Bearer instruments, we've dealt with for the last 50 years. We don't tolerate bearer instruments.
It took 2 or 3 years. It took, yes, an enforcement action. Yes, it took the definition of what is a security. In that case, I think it might have been the Howey test, but it might have been another one. It's called the Howey test. There's other broad brushes with regard to this as well, as to when something is a note, called the Reeves test that Thurgood Marshall wrote.
Looks a lot like a securities offering, right? And so we're going to treat that as a securities offering. We're going to regulate that. And so that's kind of how we look at it through that lens. Now, there are other pieces of the definition of security, like what's a note, that may come up in the crypto context as well.
And that's important to remember as we move forward through all of this information. Again, I see XRP myself as a virtual currency, just as FinCEN did in 2015. But, you know, that and 50 cents won't get me a cup of coffee either. Look, that's going to do it for me. It's all coming to a head, ladies and gentlemen. However it goes, I just want all of us to entertain these different possible outcomes